Welcome back, everyone. Another week, another episode here at Better Love Live Studio and the Better Love Podcast. I am so excited that today's guest is no other than Elena Cardone, the empire builder and founder of 10X Ladies. Welcome, Elena. How are you?
I'm so good. Thanks for having me today.
Oh my goodness, you have a beautiful background. I am so excited to hear about 10X Ladies. Can you please share with our listeners who don't already know you a little bit about who you are and what is 10X Ladies?
Okay, so I'm Elena Cardone. A lot of people know my husband, Grant Cardone. He's an entrepreneur, has built several businesses. We also own 10,000 apartment units. And so I founded 10X Ladies because he wrote a book called The 10X Rule, and it became this movement. It became this sensation, right? But I also felt like there was a certain group of women who weren't going to find Grant just because they're not tracking him, or maybe he turns them off because he's very abrasive, he's very strong, and he's easily misunderstood. So I did 10X Ladies as a catalyst for women to find me that they can relate to, but then I am the via or the conduit to everything under the Cardone umbrella. So we have Cardone Ventures, Cardone Capital, Cardone Enterprises, we have 10X Events. So we have all of this amazing programs that can help people. And so I want more women into our fold so that we're partnering up with women and not just all these men on the platform. So hence 10X Ladies. I'm starting the 10X Ladies movement, but ultimately it's so that they can have access to all the data that Grant has developed over the years.
That's amazing. So you are heading up 10X Ladies. Is it a community? Is it I know you're doing a conference. Is this your first conference coming up? And when is it?
This is my second conference, my second 10X Ladies conference. It's October 2nd and 3rd in Miami. It's on one of the largest yachts in Miami. It's going to be an incredible experience. And it is an incredible community. You want to talk about community? We are a group of women who are willing to own their power as a woman and then also go above and beyond that and take responsibility for helping other women achieve a heightened level of success. So the community is global, and we are truly there to support one another and leverage each other so that we can all make a difference for the better on this planet.
I love that. Now, Elena, I have gotten to know you on the Clubhouse app. We've shared some stages on this audio platform. We've been in DMs on Clubhouse and Instagram, so it's been great getting to know you. What advice would you give to women who are maybe intimidated by someone of your status, or maybe even intimidated of 10X Ladies? There's a lot of women that see these other powerful women and they deal with imposter syndrome, or they feel like they may not belong. Is every woman available to 10X Ladies? And what advice would you give to a woman that may not think that she can join this club or movement?
Any woman that has the mission to spread power, love, with love in their heart, a little bit of hustle in their muscle. This is really the community for you. It's a culture that we've created where it's inclusive. We just wouldn't tolerate any sort of cliques or making anyone feel ostracized. That's just not what we do. We're really here to help one another and build that community. So for the woman that feels intimidated and maybe like imposter, you were saying, might not deserve this or doesn't feel of a certain caliber, or even intimidated by me, which like to myself sounds like a joke, right? Considering where I've come from and where I've built myself up to. What I would say to the ladies that do feel intimidated is you actually need this the most, because something, not you, not the woman, something has been placed on her to make her feel that way, to actually, with the intention of suppressing her and her power. So she probably like 1,000,000% needs this the most, because she's going to be around women that are really going to help her to confront and see that that's what was happening, and then break the chains, which are, you think they're chains, but they're really like cotton swine or dental floss. It's so light in comparison to what you think it is in your head, and really allow her to take responsibility for the powerful woman that she really is, but she's pretending. Ultimately, that's what it is. She's pretending to be intimidated. She's pretending to be smaller than, and that's the real shame. And so that's the perfect kind of woman I want in my group.
I love that. Let's go back then, Elena, to years before you became Elena Cardone. And you mentioned earlier you had been known to be Grant's wife, but really and truly now you are known to be Elena. You really are a force of your own. And Grant's your husband now, right?
Yeah.
That means
on some of my stages that I speak on, I say I'm known as Grant Cardone's wife, but I'm holding out hope that in the future people are going to walk up to Grant and say, "Aren't you Elena Cardone's husband?"
Right? Exactly.
So
exactly.
That's my vision for the future.
That's what I was saying. I had the pleasure of interviewing your husband. We talked a lot about relationships. He shared the story of how he wooed you. So that now that I have you, I would love to hear your version of how you met Grant, first impressions, and why it took a year for you to respond to him. I would love to hear that story if you're open to sharing.
Absolutely. First of all, he loved you, and he is so excited that I'm on your show today. He was like, "She's amazing."
Amazing.
So when I first met Grant, I was in my late 20s, and if you go back in time, I was a competitive sporting clay shooter. I was ranked 10th in California. I also had a collection of hot rods, and I worked on cars. I've changed cams and engines and brakes. And so, I was hanging out a lot with a lot of guys, and I was an actress. So I hung out in the cool scene of actors and musicians. And that was my world. I didn't really know businessmen. That just wasn't who I was around. So I meet Grant in my late 20s, and I had moved to Los Angeles at 17 years old. So from New Orleans. So the point
that's a big move. That's New Orleans is considered like, that's a big move, small town to big city, right?
Small town, but probably the wildest town in America.
Okay.
More so than Miami, and more so than Las Vegas. It was a pretty wild town to grow up in. So I moved there at 17. Anyway, here comes Grant Cardone, and now I'm in my late 20s, and I've seen it all, right? I've seen all the producer guys, the director guys that think they can just be like, have money and try to impress a girl. And that was my interpretation of what occurred when I met Grant. So Grant, I'm shooting a commercial in downtown Los Angeles. He comes walking into the trailer. Didn't really think much of him. It wasn't like I was hostile. There was no problem. He just didn't register on the radar until he calls my house. And the director had given him my number, which is a huge no-no. You don't give somebody's number off the call sheet. But here he is calling me, and he's like, "Hey, my name's Grant Cardone," and blah, blah, blah. I have this one conversation. He was like, "Now write down 3 things." Like, he's giving me homework assignment. And he's like, "Yeah, the people that hang out with me, their lives tend to improve." And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, this guy did not just say that. Like, I thought I had heard it all, but now I had really heard it all. So I hang up the phone, and I'm clearly not interested in this guy. Like, I had so many considerations. He's not my type. He was shorter than me. He's a businessman. Like, he was like in a kind of like a golf outfit. Like, it's just not my scene, And so anyway, after that phone call, it was a disaster. He calls me twice a month, every month for the next 13 months with no return phone call. And then finally,
well, okay. So did he leave messages? Did he leave messages for you? This is before, like, social media wasn't really a thing. So he left a message on your answering machine?
Yeah, I hate to date myself, but yes, he would leave a message on my answering machine. And I never thought much of it. It was just like next, next. And again, I was in my 20s, okay? I don't want to sound braggadocious, but just understand, I was a model, an actress. I shot shotguns. I worked on cars. I had 60s hot rods. I was kind of a badass. So there was a lot of guys calling. It wasn't like a big deal. It was just next, next.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It was
right.
So 13 months later, he leaves a message on my machine. He's like, I rented out the shooting range. And, I hate to admit that, like, I'm a bee to honey, like that I'm that obvious and transparent. But I was like, okay, he rented the shooting range. I'll take him up on that offer. It's expensive. So I met him at the shooting range, and then I saw, okay, well, he's not that bad. He's a horrible shooter, but he's not as bad as I thought he was. And then he became friends with my girlfriend. And so then she started bringing him around to all the nightclubs. And so then he was kind of forced into the circle. And then from there, we kind of became friends, but I knew he liked me, but he didn't like push himself in that way that guys do. That's so annoying. And then when you don't like them back, how mean they are or whatever, they get angry.
Yeah.
He never did any of that stuff. So then I even tried like all my tricks to make him go away, and that didn't work. He was
like how to lose a guy in 10 days. You literally tried to get him to go away.
Yeah. I literally tried to get him to go away, well, because I put him through all these little tests because, from my 20s to my teens, I know I'm weird, but I never thought of myself as this woman that wanted to be married or to have children. Big mistake now. I wish I would have done it sooner, but
sure.
I never wanted to be controlled by a man. I always had this independence. I had to do everything on my own. I was like very driven. And I always had this idea that men held me back. So the guys that like, I wouldn't be in a serious committed relationship to begin with, but even if I tried, they would always try to control me. They try to slow my life down or get me to stop what I was doing. And it was like, oh my God, like the minute they fell in love with me, actually, it was like, they were done, like over, like you're out. So, Grant he just did the whole thing different, like he was amused by my antics, like it was almost like he was 2 steps ahead. And like every play I did.
He was challenged by it. You were a big challenge for him.
I was a big challenge for him. And I couldn't, like, he had my number, dude. I couldn't outwit him. And I've never had that problem before. So then one day, it just, like, I realized he was stable and I was scared. Like the whole reason I was fluttering is because I was scared to give anyone my heart or to fall in love or to be vulnerable, and so he was always like a rock. So I was always scattering, but he was always there. And then something made me love that, and then So one day we were at a restaurant and I didn't want it to happen, right? And I said, oh, F, I said the word, right? And he was like, what? And I said, you're going to make me fall in love with you, aren't you? And he said, yes, I am. And we've been together ever since.
He told me that story. And he picked you up.
What's that?
He picked you up. He picked you up at that restaurant. He thinks that that's what won you over is when he carried you from the car across the street because you had heels on. Was that it?
Well, it wasn't that I had heels on. I had hurt my hip. So I was having a hard time. Like it hurt really bad. And, I had always had this thing about a shorter guy because a lot of guys, again, if I wore heels, they were like, why do you wear heels? I'm like, why are you trying to make me shorter? Like, why can't you just embrace? It wasn't really, I had a problem with them being shorter. They always had a problem with me being tall. And I don't want to feel like I want to feel like a dainty little woman. Right. And I like a big, strong man. So when he picked me up and just carried me like I weighed a feather, that was the first time I was like, oh, wow, he's not as like weak and like maybe he won't have a problem with my height. He's never had a problem with my height. He's never told me not to wear heels. And I've never felt uncomfortable with the height thing with him. And I've always felt petite around him. So, but that was the first moment where I realized, oh, Yeah, he's shorter than me, but he's bigger than me. I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you felt like a woman, as you said, because I mean, Grant's a big personality and he works out. I mean, he's in great, you're both in excellent shape. I mean,
Wait, what? Is it
at the
that
end,
way?
look at those guns, girl. Oh my God. I seen you kick your trainer's ass. Like you are kickboxing. Like, what is your fitness routine? Tell me about that. Is that a staple in your household? Do you and Grant work out together or do you do it separately?
We do it separately. He's just now getting into boxing and more kind of the Muay Thai kick kind of stuff. But I'm scared to train with him because he's wild, like he's wild and
Yeah.
so anyway, I train every day. Yeah, I train every day about an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, like the better shape that I'm in cardio wise. But yeah, it's like an everyday thing. I'm kind of an all-in chick.
The funny thing is, I never heard your story and I didn't know the wild in you, that the guys were there, you had this cool lifestyle. And meanwhile, I'm thinking that Grant was like the playboy because you had all kinds of options. Two people that are that sort of desirable to the opposite sex. Like, has that ever played a role? You don't seem like jealous people. And I'm just wondering, was there ever concern he travels or you travel with each other's loyalties?
No, there really hasn't. We're just not jealous people. We found that I say this in building an empire, find the one you trust and build an empire. So he can trust me on days when I hate him or when we're in a fight or whatever. I'm still going to execute 100% in the role that I've agreed to in this relationship, and that I'm not going to do anything stupid. Now, we've been together 18 years. I'm sure he's been tempted. I've been tempted, but I've never, ever, ever allowed myself to cross that line, and neither has he. So, it's also surrounding yourself with the right people who are going to help you to not be weak in those moments of weakness, that are going to like smack you silly and would never even let something like that, let you become vulnerable to a situation like that. So we're not jealous people at all. And I trust him immensely. And,
That's
I look
amazing.
at
That's
all
incredible.
things. I'm like, if I've been cheated on before in the past, or when I did try to have little relationships, and if it happens, it's like, okay, I'm not going to be jealous, worried about something that could happen. I'd rather just deal with it and then confront it, and then yeah, he's wrong, but I would then have to also look at, well, where did I fail? Like, why did you do that? Like, was it because because I've been ignoring him or making him not feel like wanted? Like, I feel like in the past, the guys cheated because in my like 6-month relationship, I felt like they cheated because I always had this attitude, right? That I had to be this strong, independent woman. So I was always walking around like, I don't need you. I have my own money. I had my own acting career. I don't need you. I don't need you. And whether you're a guy or a girl, you want to feel needed and wanted by somebody else. You don't want to feel like they're going off doing their own thing and you're not included. So, so I would have to look at what was my responsibility in that, and then determine, okay, how are we going to make this right to go forward?
Now, you mentioned you weren't thinking about marriage, you weren't thinking about kids. Now you have two beautiful girls. Before you had the kids, did you have a discussion about how you were going to raise them, or did kids just all of a sudden come? What's your discussion around that, especially because you are both busy entrepreneurs?
There was a very big discussion about children. Yes. So before we got married, he said he wanted children. Like, if I didn't want children, that was going to have to be a decision that he would make, whether he wanted to be with me or not. I wanted to have children when we got married, but not then. So I said, I do want children, but I need 2 years. I want 2 years with just you and I. Because the reality is, as much as he thinks, oh, I'm going to be hands-on, and he is, as a mother, it's completely different. It's like when we go out to dinner, it's me figuring out who's watching the kids. It's me like he can go anywhere, whenever, like he has no reality of the planning that is involved with that, like it's no longer just for life. Whereas I feel like he can still kind of do his life. So I bargained for 2 years. And he said, fine, we'll have kids in 2 years. Although he wanted, and I'm pretty sure he tried really hard on our honeymoon to try to have kids right then and there. But after the 2 years, I went to him and I said, I'm going to renegotiate for 1 more year. I want 1 more year. So we renegotiated. So I had my 3 years, and then I was dying to have kids. Okay. And then I was like, I'm ready. And it took me a year and a half after that. So that was really frustrating, but thank God
it happened. That's amazing.
Because
do your kids go to regular school? Are they homeschooled? They're incredibly bright. I mean, they're little CEOs in the making. Like, what is it? Are you doing things differently with the girls that maybe other parents are doing? I'm curious to know that.
They're homeschooled. They've been homeschooled for 3 years. I'm pretty sure we're doing a lot of things differently than most parents do. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. I could go into a lot of things, any area. I'm pretty sure it's different.
Sure.
We tell our kids, most people say, don't talk to strangers. We encourage them to talk to strangers. The strangers have everything you need in life, like, making yourself known and exchanging your products and services. You have to meet people. My job as a parent is to protect the environment so that they can be free enough to talk to people. I mean, that's just one thing, like we don't say, be careful in my house, because that introverts a kid and makes them afraid and scared of everything. Right. So I say, look,
totally.
You see this desk, it has a corner, it has an edge. You might not want to run into that. It could hurt, but you see that, you see this, and I made them touch it, so then they become aware of their surroundings, and then they can, navigate in the environment safely. I mean, of course, it's my job again to make the environment safe. I'm not going to have a big old knife or a loaded gun on the table. Like,
oh God,
I'm not stupid. I have to make the environment safe, but within the existing environment that you can't move, like big tables and walls, like just tell them, and they can be responsible for their own bodies,
Yeah. So, I mean, that's great. And I see the way that they are. So clearly whatever you and Grant are doing together is incredible. Now, when it comes to your business savvy and sense, Grant has credited you for being really the hustler. He mentioned in our interview, there was a time when his business imploded and you literally supported the family during that time, or whatever it was that you did. Like, you buckled up and you did what you needed to do. Where do you get that drive? Have you always been an entrepreneur? Because, you mentioned you're a bit of a badass. Is that drive something that you got from your parents? Is it internal? Where do you think it comes from?
I don't know. First of all, I haven't always been an entrepreneur. Honestly, Grant has taught me everything I know about business and entrepreneurialism and money and finances, and has changed my whole mindset on that. For me, I don't know where it's come from. My dad was a world champion sporting clay shooter. I don't know, maybe it's in a gene, but I've always been driven, and I've always been competitive. I compete at mostly against myself, but I'm always so yes, I've always been driven, whether it was in the wrong direction, where, growing up in New Orleans and that hardcore scene, I was a little punk rock chick, whatever I did, I just went all in. So I'm all in. I don't know how to do anything else. That's why I'm obsessed. I train every day. I just go all in on anything. So I have to stay with the right thing.
So Elena,
embrace it, because for so many people, they can't have my energy and drive. So many people, if I'm not around the right people, could want to try to stop that and tame that down in me, because it's too much for other people. It confronts what they can't do themselves. So the best thing to do is to try to slow or stop me down, or make me seem wrong, or like something's wrong with me, that I don't have balance, or that I'm too hyper, or whatever,
So these are actual things that people have said. I imagine that you're under a lot of fire. And you mentioned that, Grant is a big personality. You're a big personality. Are you two alphas? A lot of people want to know, how do two people like yourselves make it work? What's the secret to that? How do you, compromise if you are both, so strong and so driven?
It's difficult sometimes. I'm going to be very honest. It's very difficult sometimes.
Yeah, of course.
But on the same note, we have delegated who does what. So when I finally had the cognition that I can't be this independent, strong woman all by myself, I can't build an empire, because nobody's built an empire alone, and that I'm 4 years into my marriage and it's actually okay to depend on a man. We are married and it's okay for him to depend on me.
So you had to give that up. I hear the resistance in you, and like, you needed to like allow him to be the man, and you needed to be vulnerable because you were terrified to do that. Did you do that on your own, or did you work with a professional? Because a lot of people can't get past this and they don't let people into their lives, which is why they're single.
Well, I took a lot of courses in Scientology. That's our religion. And so I learned overcoming ups and downs in life, personal values and integrity. I've taken a communication course. I've done a lot of training. I took a marriage course. I took how to rear children. I've done how to confront and shatter suppression. So I've done a lot of education to get to this point. And it really helped me to understand that in our relationship, we can have what is our couple's goal, individual from our own goals, but in the couple's goals, okay, for instead of us fighting each other, because we're, as you said, we're both alphas, and we were fighting each other before I had this epiphany. We were fighting each other, vying over this male-female power position. Then I figured out, okay, what is Grant really great at? What are his strengths? What are my strengths? What are his weaknesses? What are my weaknesses? And then I put into place, you get to be the boss of this. I get to be the boss of this. You get to be the boss of this, and I'm the boss of this, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera for him. So we can advise the two on the subjects that we're the boss of, but at the end of the day, we have to support the other and whoever runs that department on their final decision. And so once we did that, it was less fighting each other, because now I'm in my own game that I get to go all in on and making my area flourish and prosper and win and be 100% at, and not fighting him, because I'm all in. Like, I need a game. So either my game's going to be winning here, or my game's going to be fighting my husband, but I'm going to be playing a game. It's just, what are the choices that I want to make that are more survival to us as a group to hitting our couple's goals?
I'm not surprised that you took that strategy or that process, because it's really, you're both business, well, not that you're business minded. Grant, as you said, taught you a lot about business. So it's great that you were able to see where you guys can take ownership, because that solved a lot of fighting. Now, in terms of the children as well, do you have agreements as well with who does what with the kids?
I run the children. I'm the boss of everything under the household, under the household rules. So I run everything that pertains to the children. And he gets to be an incredible father, and he's an incredible father, but he's a horrible mother. Like, and that's fine, because he's a father. He's not a mother. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to dress the kids in sweaters in 30-degree weather. He's going to put them in a tank top and shorts, but he's going to give them things that I can't give them, because he's a father and I'm not. So yes. So with the kids, like, every decision, whether they're homeschooled, whether they're eating sugar that week, who's in the household working with them, who's the tutor, every single decision regarding the children is ultimately made by me. Of course, we can discuss.
That's amazing.
He can give me input.
So, Elena, as Grant, you were married. Were you afraid of helping him in his business? Was it a natural transition? I don't know what role you play in any of his businesses, or if you play a role. A lot of people are reluctant to get into partnership or in business with their partner. What tips can you share to people about that? Because there's your husband, and then there's also the boss, right? Or I don't know how you treat him, somebody that you're taking instruction from, or he's able to tell you what to do in his business. How did you manage that? And what advice can you give to couples that are working together?
Well, it's important to know that you're equal in marriage, but you might not be. And certainly in our case, we are not equal in business. So I understand that Grant is superior in business than me. And that's not degrading myself. It's just the isness and the reality of the situation. And he is the boss of the business, and he's tried and true. And I would, I'm not stupid. I'm a lot of things, but I'm not stupid. So in this atmosphere, I'm his junior, and he is the boss, and
Right.
and I forget it at times, and and I'm not perfect, and it's whatever. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I have to reel myself back in and go, nope, he makes the executive decisions in this area, and I have to, know my role. My role in the offices is not the same as his. And I
now
do
is 10x
again.
is 10x ladies is 10x ladies your baby? Like this, is Grant involved in 10x ladies, or is this a division of Grant's, or is it entirely your doing?
It's entirely my doing. Of course, he supports me. And now he's got the whole offices helping me to sell the tickets and help me with the event and the whole process. So he's loaned resources from the office to my event. So he's very supportive, but this is not his day-to-day operation. No.
Right. It's yours. Good. What other projects do you have going on? What do you like to do in your free time when you're not, what's a typical day like for you? Is there any time? Do you follow a routine? What time did you get up this morning?
This morning, I got up around 5:30. I was training at 6:30 to 8. And I do, honestly, it sounds so crazy, but that's actually what I do for fun in my free time.
Do you get 8 hours of sleep? Like, how important is sleep to you guys? To you in particular, does Grant sleep? Do you guys ever sleep?
Yeah, Grant sleeps. We're big proponents of sleep. I try to get 8 hours of sleep every day. My assistant's going no, because I oftentimes text her at 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning, 5 a.m., 4 a.m. Like, she thinks I never sleep, but that's not true. I do sleep, and I do believe in sleep. Sometimes I just
how do you guys manage phones? Do you have a rule at dinner, or is there a time where you have no phones in hand, or because you're both business people, like the phone is just a staple, like you allow each other phones?
Phone is a staple. We have a goal. We set a really big couples goals, which will never, I don't want to say never, but it's so ridiculous to even have the audacity to think that we can attain it. But we want to reach 7 billion people on planet Earth. We want them to know and be winning from our products and services. So it's a big target. It's a big goal. So if you set a goal that big, you can't really then say, wait, we have to time out. Like, who times out? Like, it's going to be impossible with every single breathing second of my life to achieve that goal. Why would I take a break from it? Like, I can't take a break. He can't take a break. or we're then have to admit to ourselves that that's not really our goal.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I think it's great because you're both aligned. Like, a lot of people fight over their phone, but if you guys understand you're both on the same page and that you realize this is your lifeline to impacting people, it's not like you're jealous of each other's time. So I think that's more the concern, is that people feel like they're not important and that the phone is more important, as an example, right? So
yeah, well, I think that's the problem. Every time I have allowed myself to believe in the idea of the way something's supposed to be, I've gotten in trouble. I now just do my life, okay? And my life is going to look different from everybody else's life because I am very different, and so is Grant. So I can't compare, and I can't make the comparison anymore. And I can't fall into this comparison or this ideal
seen that other people think. You put your phone away, we hold hands, we watch a movie, and that proves that we love each other. Like, that's nice. And I love those moments, right? But that moment doesn't do it for me. Like, me, that's me. What does it for me is like if somebody helps me achieve my goal, that's what love is. That's the greatest act of love for me, is if you can help me achieve my goal, that's showing me that you love me. And same for him. Like, if I can help Grant achieve his goals, like, nothing else makes me happier. I mean, I don't want to be the one that's going to put the blatant truth out there, but I don't think anybody else can make you happy. I think that's why they say you need to make yourself happy first. So making him put up his phone to show me that he loves me, to make me happy, that's not really real. Like, you're kidding yourself. That's not you are not making yourself happy in that moment. You're relying on somebody else to give you something that you need, rather than giving yourself the thing that you need. So when I achieve my goals, that makes me love. And then that somebody helped me do that, that makes me love them even more and more fortified. And that's why, through all of the challenges of all the alpha-isms and whatnot, that's why after 18 years, we continue to grow in love.
I love that. Elena, talk to me about you having this picture of the guy that you would have been, to marrying Grant, who didn't really impress you. By the way, he was right when he made that phone call, because he did say that people's lives change around him. But did you see that as cocky? He says that, but you looked at that as like, he's a cocky son of a bitch. Like, were you thinking he was arrogant? Like, how did you take that?
Totally.
He was right.
So arrogant. I thought, oh my God, this guy is, I mean, had to have taken the cake on The Biggest Loser. Like, of all the lines that I had ever heard, that was pretty much the worst. But I mean, look at me now. I mean, clearly my life is completely changed. It is way far beyond even better than I ever thought it ever would be. So, I mean, he was 1,000,000% right. And I'm very glad he made all those phone calls and didn't, I'm glad I didn't outwit him.
Yeah. So what did, when we talk about physical attraction, and listen, Grant is a handsome man, and just because the height thing, it wasn't, he even told me that, he's like, I think she wanted to date some NBA player or basketball player or some football jock or something like that. He goes, but all I had to do was
like military, that kind of a look.
Yeah. But attraction can grow, right? And what was it ultimately that you wanted or thought you wanted in a partner that Grant gave you? Like, are there 3 things? Are there 5 things? What were you looking for that would have made you feel secure? Or what did Grant give you that had you let your guard down?
Well, again, I wasn't looking prior to Grant.
Sure.
I really thought, I'd be happy being single for the rest of my life. But I think once I saw that, I think what really like kind of whacked me in the face was the security, the stability, but also like when I had the realization that I was looking at a man who, for some weird reason, like I really felt like he loved me. Like,
he did love you.
Just about,
he does love you.
What's that?
He did love you. He did love you. The minute, I mean, when we talked, if you watched his interview, he was diligent. I did not think that you didn't answer the phone. He's like, I called her I think he said 26 times I called her. He knew how many times he called you, and she didn't return any of my phone calls. And by the way, the recollection was that you guys met at the Scientology church. He found out that you liked guns, so he rented the whole place. And that was he was strategizing his way to figure out how to get you to be interested in him. So he wanted to be with you. So that's got to be incredibly romantic.
The only correction I have on that is I didn't even know he was into Scientology when I met him. I just met him on that commercial shoot. And then that was
Oh,
a plus too, because at the time,
how did he end up on that shoot? Like, was it a mutual
well, he was
friend? What
friends with
happened?
the director, this guy named Mitch. He
Okay.
was friends with the director. And so Grant tells me, I can't verify this part of the story, but Grant tells me that it was his first night into town from when he moved from La Jolla to Los Angeles. And Mitch said, come to the set. It was a nighttime shoot in downtown Los Angeles. And so he showed up and then ends up walking in the hair and makeup and wardrobe trailer. And that's where we kind of saw each other and whatever.
And he's like, I need to have her. I need to pursue her. What, Elena, is there anything that people misunderstand about you? What do you think you're misunderstood for, if anything?
I always think I get asked this question, and in hindsight, I always go, "Oh yeah, remember to tell him that." Now I can't remember. I think for me, what I'm most understood about is probably that probably people perceive me to be something that I'm not. They perceive that I'm either stuck up or unapproachable, or that maybe I don't have feelings or something like that, because they assume, I don't know what they assume, but for me, I think I'm most understood about that because I am so sensitive, and it's a weakness, and I really I work on that, but I feel things to a detriment, I think.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about haters, right? And especially being Grant's wife, or maybe did you ever feel like you were in his shadow, or people talking about you marrying Grant? Because I hear that a lot with women who are married to powerful men. Have you experienced that kind of thing, and have you just gotten better at it?
First of all, yeah, I'm going to answer that question, but the misconception for me that I can sum up on your last question is people think it's so easy. They think I have it easy. They think life comes to us easy. And that's the biggest misconception, because it's not. It's hard. To answer your second question, yeah, early on, some of Grant's friends and even some family members may have called me a gold digger in the beginning, which I was highly offended by, because I had always been this strong, independent woman. I made my own money. I had my own cars, my own house, etc. So I found that to be highly offensive. It really irritated me. I was like, I don't need this. Another reason I tried to get away from Grant. I was like, anytime there was a problem, I was like, but then I realized a very important lesson. I wrote about it in my book, Build an Empire, How to Have It All. I talk about the first time I was able to use something that was thrown at me, which really bugged me, gold digger. And then I owned it. And I said, wait a minute, I am a gold digger. And I dig for gold in myself first, which is why I can dig for it in others. So I owned it. I was like, then I started calling myself a gold digger, and it popped the air from anybody else. I was like, yeah, I am. So that was the first time I had another tool in my belt to be able to realize that I could use something. So then to answer your second question, being this actress, I was in the limelight. I was like the this, the that. To then coming in and taking the perception of the second behind the scenes kind of a person. How did I cope with that? Well, again, I used that as a way to implement the behind the scenes infrastructure, and be able to create what that world looked like undetected. So I was able to use that. Maybe I'm not the decision maker, or maybe I don't have as much power as I do, or whatever. I was able to use that to my advantage for many years, because I was whacking off people. Nope, they're going. This person's coming in. I was able to create the whole mold and the whole structure around Grant with no one suspecting that it was me. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I didn't mind. I used it. It was good cover.
So you must have changed. You've changed friends. You've changed homes. I know he traveled from California to Miami. That was a big move. You did that when you had a child. He mentioned that in his story. What's been the most difficult part in your marriage so far?
Probably, I think right now, I mean, not right now, like we're not like having problems, but it's,
You know what? He told me that the movie was a big, like his time away in the movie was a real hard time for both of
that
you.
was a hard time. That was 2020 was our hardest year. I mean, it was very difficult, very difficult. That was
Yeah.
our hardest year in our marriage. I think it's also difficult now because for so many years I have been this certain role around him, and he depends on me for a lot of things. Yeah. And so now I'm doing 10X Ladies right now. I have my Build an Empire Mastermind thing. I have 10X Operation Badass. I have I'm doing this thing with EXP, and now I'm creating the largest, most successful real estate team in the world. Plus, I just became a realtor, so I had to learn all of that.
I'm going to congratulations.
Thanks. I already capped on my first deal. I've done, like, I have 3 other work. So now I'm really busy. I'm on the phone all the time. So now when he comes home, I'm on calls. There's no, hey, how are you? Like, because before I did a lot of make a loving, distraction-free environment to where he could relax and then regroup and refocus on all of his deals and go into battle the next day. And now I'm in a different role, and now he's in a different role because now he's got so many people in place to handle some of the other things that he can kind of relax more, which is what I want. Not that he's relaxing, but he's focusing more on what's really important and kind of trusting other people to take over the other work. So he's in a point in his life where he can kind of relax more. And I'm in a point in my life where the kids are old enough and we've got enough things where I can just now go. And so it's a bit of an adjustment.
Yeah, it sounds like you probably need to relook at those maybe responsibilities, right? And roles together. And thank you for sharing that, because we all go through things, and you're ambitious, and he is now watching you take off, right? And I can imagine that that's gotta be not testing, but it's different for him, right? To see you do that. I'm sure he wants to see you successful.
For sure. And, I've been studying him for the last 18 years. So, I mean, I know he's watches me in admiration, because everything that I do when I succeed, honestly, has come from principles. I've sat in all of his boot camp workshops. I've sat in all of his speeches and conferences and seminars. Like, for the last 18 years, I have been studying this man. So he's got to look at me and see when I'm winning and crushing it. And, and I know he's proud. He always pushes me. He's the one that pushed me to write the book. He's always pushing me. So it's twofold, because again, he's a man and he wants his wife. So I don't want to throw him under the bus. It's common. I mean, there's that dynamic too that can't get ignored, or it will fall apart. So it's very difficult.
Sure, because you both have agreements to each other, right?
Yeah, it's like we have to tend to ourselves because we're the foundation. So it's for me, I'm having a difficult time trying to figure out how to navigate it all. And then I'm a mom, which requires a different level of attention than he would probably agree is required of him. So it's a lot pulling, and it's new for me. So I have to figure out how to juggle all the balls and how to make the dance work.
How to make it work, yeah. Well, what is as we wrap up, Elena? What are the top 3 business books that you've read in the last year or in your lifetime? What are your favorites?
I mean,
you don't read.
You're asking somebody who's extremely biased. I'm Grant's biggest fan.
Okay, tell me. I don't care.
Okay, so you got to read the 10X rule. I mean, that's a given.
Okay.
You have to read Be Obsessed or Be Average and Sell or Be Sold. I mean, these are just basics. I mean,
Are those
I can go on and on. The little
are those
millionaire
all books that Grant wrote?
These are all
Are those
great.
all the books that Grant wrote?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The Millionaire
Amazing.
booklet. It's a free booklet. It's like everything you need to know about money. I've never been great in school. The only thing that saved me was my ability to memorize and regurgitate information, but there was no applicable data that I could actually apply to my life. When I read Grant's books, it's applicable data that I can then turn around and apply to my life and see a result. So I love his books. I mean, he's got so many, it's hard to choose from because they're all amazing. And then I don't read anybody else's books. I should read. I don't read enough.
Well, listen, whatever you're reading and doing is obviously bringing you the success that you have right now. That is so amazing. Elena, what do you want to share with our audience? Where can they find you, and where do you want them to go?
Oh, I want them to go to elenacardone.com. Where I physically want them to go is to the 10X Ladies event in October. This is 10X Ladies, the Power Player Edition. It's on a yacht. The capacity is 240.
And then everything that you're up to is on elenacardone.com. Where can they get your book, Build an Empire?
So that's free. You can go to elenacardone.com.
Really? Okay.
elenacardone.com/empire.
Amazing. All right. Thank you so much, Elena. What are your plans for the rest of the day?
I'm showing houses. I have meetings at the other house. I have an opportunity meeting. I'm trying to attract a major influencer into EXP Realty. So I got to solidify that deal. Then it's another back-to-back podcast, and finally done at maybe 8 o'clock tonight. Right?
There you
Am I done
go.
at 8 o'clock? She said more or less. I think she wants me to go longer. We'll see.
Is that Danielle? Is it Danny?
Yeah, she's over
Danielle.
there waving.
Hi, Danielle. Thanks so much, Elena. Have an amazing rest of the day. It was a pleasure to chat with you. I can't wait to see you in person. I may be getting my ticket to 10X Ladies. I will check my schedule. Woo!
Yes, yes. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks for having me on this amazing interview. Grant was right. You are extraordinary. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye, guys.
Bye.